to talk, you'll have to unmute yourself. So Abby, I'll mute everybody and then you can go.
Okay, I don't know. There is no button on the phone. On the computer it was. So
I got you. You're good.
Okay, thank you. Oh, there's my computer now. I'd like to bring the meeting to order and ask that roll be called, please.
Bluth? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Here.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, Disharoon?
Here.
Henry?
Here.
Holshauser?
Here.
Humbles?
Here.
Wagenbach?
Here.
Wisdom?
Here.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to ask, well, we can't stand for the pledge. We don't have a flag, but we can say it anyway. So let's begin. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
of the United
States of America and to the republic
for
which it stands,
one
One
nation,
nation,
under God,
indivisible, with
liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
He will begin his superintendent's report. Dr. Dearman?
Yes, I'm here. I'll keep this brief because a lot of what I think I'm going to talk about is already covered in the agenda item. I'll just say that we are up and running with the remote learning, and we'll address some of that in an update future agenda item. I've had no FOIA requests, so that's all I have at this point.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Public comments. At this time, we'll move to public comments. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board? If so, you would have contacted Dr. Dearman. Do we have anyone, Dr. Dearman?
We do not. No one has contacted me.
Very good. That concludes the public participation portion of the meeting. The board will now move on to information and discussion items. The beginning of the items, we start with an e-learning update. I know several people were asking about numbers, how many people are participating, how's it going, how are the teachers hanging in there and the administrators. So Dr. Dearman, if you would give us that update, or Matt, whoever is going to do it.
Matt Andrews will take that.
Okay.
Sure. I had shared a presentation. Are you guys able to share that, or
I can't see a thing here, but yeah. But go ahead.
Okay.
I did not see it, but
No, you haven't shared it, Matt. You want me to try and share it from my end?
Right. Yes. Can you try that?
Sure.
I just got an email.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think Scott's gonna.
I'll
Go
pull
ahead
it
and
up.
share
Yeah,
the
give me a second.
Yeah.
I see it. Instructional remote learning, Wednesday, April 8th. Okay, very nice.
My internet is not working well, cutting in and out, so I'm going to try to join by phone, please.
Sounds good.
Okay, yeah, let me switch over.
Hi, Tom.
All right, I should have a shared screen there.
Yeah. Yes,
Okay,
Sure.
everybody sees instructional remote learning?
Yes,
I
sir.
do.
Yes.
Okay,
All right. So really, I just want to give a quick overview. And then as we're going, talk about some of the pieces that we've been improving upon, and we'll definitely look to improve as we move forward with remote learning. But when we had created this, I'd been doing lots of research, reading districts' existing e-learning plans, as well as since Canvas had already called school for the year, they had a similar document to what ISB had put out. So I looked at that as well, just to make sure what our thoughts were definitely something that would likely be in line with what ISB had. And sure enough, thankfully, that all kind of worked out really well. But first and foremost, of course, we want to make sure that all students are happy, healthy, and safe. during the time, and that's the very first thing that we say within our instructional remote learning plan. But we also want to make sure that we're minimizing the educational impact that students will have during this time. It's not going to be perfect, and ISB recognizes that. Any school that, all schools that have turned to that recognize that. Again, it's not a replacement of the classroom, and we can't view it that way. So that has to be part of how we look at this going forward, is that it's not just going to be copulating what happened in a teacher's classroom, where teachers at the front of the room being able to actually check in with students one-on-one and face-to-face. We can't have that. So definitely making sure that we're cognizant of that as we move forward. And with those plans, trying to engage those students as much as possible and in a developmentally appropriate manner. Overall, from the expectations for students and teachers, but really more so from the student perspective, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive that I've received from members of the community who have reached out, either me and or Dr. Dearman. Many of them appreciate the communication, the clear expectations, but really felt that the structure definitely allowed for students to have the support that they need around what lessons were being planned by their teachers, and made it manageable for them at home, as many of them are trying to manage working remotely, trying to figure out how working remotely is going for them. So that feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. Again, while we're having teachers plan for this, and I'll talk about it a little bit in my teacher expectations slide, but really the focus for teachers needs to be on high quality feedback. Again, we can't ignore the needs of students and of teachers either. I personally have 3 kids, and my wife is a teacher too, and we definitely juggle, but especially with one of them being, only 1 year old, unfortunately, she's not as independent as our oldest, who's 6. So we definitely have to be cognizant of that as well, because they do have to be cared for. And then finally, just enabling students and staff to maintain relationships, which is really just the cornerstone to an effective learning environment. So we're making sure that we are having those check-ins available and prepared for kids. This infographic, I had adapted and made it for the district, but Mandy Ellis had had taken our discussion points that we had in that plan and had condensed and made this really neat and easy to read student expectations infographic. So this is on the web page, the remote learning web page for the district. And I know all the different elementary schools had tailored it to their school's theme and mascot, and had emailed those out to their families. But at the root of it, students are needing to check their teachers' Canvas pages to view any instruction that they're given, whether it's a video, if they're able to set up a live Google Meet to provide instruction, it's that, as well as what their learning activities are. And then give those, for any assignment that a teacher's asking a student to provide evidence of learning, clear expectations are given to the student as to how they need to turn that in, whether it's through Canvas, on Seesaw, through a Flipgrid video where they're recording themselves doing something, what have you. Those are our minimum expectations for students. And then obviously the detailed expectations come in from individual teachers. So again, this is really where we've had a lot of that good feedback, because in the middle of the week, that's where they're receiving the focused priorities standards. The teachers are reconstituting their entire lesson plans to cover, recreating quite a bit to cover just that material. And so by doing a structure where Monday and Friday they have anchored hours so that they can meet with students one-on-one, it's really just kind of wrapping students in that support that is needed in order for them to get the bulk of what we've tailored everything down to. So that's that. On the next slide, again, are 2 big mediums that we're using, Canvas, and then Google Meets as well. And Google Meet over Zoom just due to security and just due to security issues really in general, and making sure that we are being compliant with their acceptable usage policy and COPA and all that good stuff. So so far our platforms have been holding up. Canvas has been emailing quite a bit about the updates they're doing to make sure they're able to meet the increased usage throughout their system. But so far, there haven't been any big issues other than really probably boiling down to connectivity. We all have spotty connectivity, and during the peak of the day, that's when a lot of people are going to be using the internet. So really that's where a lot of some frustrations will come from, is just when peak hours, you have a lot of people accessing the internet.
Do you want questions at the end or as we go?
Oh, if you have questions as I'm going, by all means.
Okay. I had some questions on the student expectations. I was just wondering what other schools are doing in terms of, are other schools doing a Tuesday through Thursday schedule for the students and letting them be basically off on Monday and Friday? Or are they doing the 5-day?
Some schools are doing 5, some schools are doing 4. Originally, we had a 4-day plan, but again, as we had talked about in terms of what we were expecting teachers to do, what we were expecting students to do, and in a completely new environment without that one-on-one support, we wanted to make sure that we built in time not only for teachers to reinvent the wheel as they are having to do in many of these cases. No one was ready just to kind of flip a switch and say everything's ready online. So we want to make sure that we're able to do that and to give them time to provide that quality feedback, which again is very much the essential point in making sure we know where students are. Is if we're expecting teachers to give that specific feedback to those kids for those new assignments they're making, the time needs to be there. And then really the big part is being able to support kids through those office hours and meet with students who are having questions, either new or ongoing issues with the material that's being presented, having to do some reteaching during that time as well. But yeah, there are many different ways that people are approaching this.
Well, my understanding was that 15 hours were required, and it just seemed to me that it made more sense to do 5 3-hour days where everything that's done on Monday and Friday you still have the same amount of hours put in. It would just be that kids would have more of a routine of, getting up and doing school in the morning and then kind of having the afternoons off. I was wondering from a student routine, perspective, what's in the best interest of the students, to have that 5-day regular routine or to have 3 days where it's, supposedly longer, but, it would be the same number of hours that the teacher would have time to prepare. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And again, with what's happening Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'd probably say very few kids are actually completing the assignments that are being given to them. I both anecdotally from what is being shared with me by teachers and administrators, I would say that's the overwhelming feedback is that students are using that time that they're given on those days to work and then to reach out to teachers. At the elementary level, they still have their specials assignments that they're doing Monday through Friday. So I definitely get what you're saying there. We just, as well as when coming up with that plan, definitely felt that this made sure that for students who didn't necessarily have that support or have that ability to be connected at that time, they could find a structure and a routine that would work within this so that they weren't necessarily expected to be on at this point if that didn't work, if they had to, especially for your older students, take care of siblings. And we definitely wanted to focus on being consistent across the district. We didn't want to come up with this is our elementary schedule, this is our middle school, and this is our high school, because we felt like that would be very confusing for the community. And so we definitely had all those conversations about 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, need to be consistent.
Well, one of the other issues that came up in conversation, we, as part of what was, told, we had to come to mutual agreement with the DEA. And so they worked on this with us to develop the plan. And one of the topics of conversation Matt already mentioned, and that was, the teachers that are, parents as well. And then also for those that, are parents that are struggling with daycare, it was brought to our attention if we could keep that to a minimum to try and secure child care for 3 days was an easier task for some than trying to secure it for all 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is a work in progress. I mean, we knew you had to start somewhere. That's part of the reason we have those 3 remote planning days that we can look at this and tailor it. Thursday was our first day, and today completes our 3rd day. So we're in the infancy of this. So I'm sure it will change. It will morph into something different. But I think we're at a good starting point for now. And then we'll start gathering that feedback through Matt's feedback form, and then we'll look to tailor and refine it from here. But as far as a starting point, I think we're off and running, and the feedback has been good.
Very good. Okay, Matt, do you have the next slide ready?
Yep. So another
I just
thing
had
that,
another question about.
oh yeah.
I had a question about the Canvas and Google Meet. I was just wondering on the Google Meets, are all students able to participate in Google Meet at once in a classroom?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. That's been my understanding. I haven't heard any issues that they haven't. Have you heard differently?
Well, I thought I did. I'll confirm that.
Okay.
I think my kids have done it. Like they said they were on with their science teacher, and she told me how many were on. So to some extent, it is working with a Google Classroom. I think that's what they were using.
And are they able to see each other?
And they use it Google Meets, and she's had her entire class on there as well. So it is a possibility if they choose to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if
are they able to
I know that
see
one
each
of
other
the
or
boys,
just hear each other.
I know one of the boys was singing, is what I was told. So I know that they can definitely hear each other.
Sure. Now, in terms of seeing, that's up to the students. And there are a couple of, just like with Zoom, you can, like I believe with the update, there's an option. Mine looks a little bit different now because of how it's set up, but you have different ways that you can view the screen, either where you have tiles, and even then, depending on the number of people you have, you might have to click through the screen. It is something new, so it does come with some growing pains for sure that everyone is going to have to get used to. It's been my understanding that it's otherwise been able to be used by everyone who can engage at that time.
Okay, thanks.
I know it's new, and I think it's a good start. From having 4 at home, if there were a way to get it to 4 or 5 days, I think it's beneficial because of having a regular schedule. That means they're only in school 3 days a week, and it's a lot of downtime. So those are my thoughts if there's adjustments to it later.
Scott, you mentioned in one of your podcasts that you're having regular teleconference calls with the other superintendents in the area. Is this what the other schools are doing around here?
Yes.
Okay.
Very common platform. Google Hangouts, Google Meets is the primary platform. Some schools are using Zoom, but there are some concerns with that as far as hacking and whatnot. I mean, we're on a Zoom right now, and I set the meeting up pretty securely. We've asked our teachers not to use Zoom because of the fact that when parents sign off on the handbook, they're signing off on the Google platform, and Zoom is not part of that. So we felt more comfortable using the Google platform instead of Zoom for the meetings.
Yeah, I'm thinking more about the 3-day format as opposed to the platform.
There are some that are, I mean, it's all over the board. Some are doing 3 days, some are doing 4, some are doing 5. Some are saying the teachers are not allowed to introduce new material. They're only allowed to review. We're not of that philosophy. We're allowing our people to introduce new material. So it just depends on the district and what their preference is.
Yep. Again, wanting to make sure that we're providing a structure that's going to be beneficial and accessible to all of our students. So again, that's something we definitely have to keep in mind when we look at all this. Is so not only for those, yes, structure is absolutely great and it's necessary, and that's definitely why we have those office hours and those check-ins where teachers are reaching out. Those days are especially great at the secondary level, where they have multiple teachers and perhaps weren't able to engage when the teacher was able to go live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They can look to be doing that Monday, Friday. Again, teachers are able to set up one-on-ones during that time. So again, that's just a lot of the background. I know it looks a little bit different, but again, we are reinventing the wheel here, and making sure that as we're planning for learning, that we're doing it in a way that we can best manage it and help support kids, because we are losing that one-to-one, that face-to-face, which is big. So okay, the student engagement slide that you're seeing in front of you. Sorry, go back. The student engagement slide. So I know Karen, you had asked when we had talked via text about students and how engagement was going, and at the elementary level, it's a little bit easier to manage, which kind of makes sense if you think about it. All the students report to a classroom teacher. The student-to-teacher ratio there is a little bit easier to manage. At the secondary level is definitely where you see some increase. And really, I'm just going to focus on the high school here, where just to give some numbers to that, of the week, the first week when we were under the old e-learning 5-day week expectation, you had over 300 students who weren't engaged. And so what Scott, Megan, and David did was they, and I believe in conjunction with some of their ILT perhaps, they had created a student engagement spreadsheet where they listed obviously the students, the teacher, teachers came in and listed students who weren't engaging with their classes. And so then what counselors did from there is they then reached out to families to determine what was the issue, what was causing us to have at the high school over 300 kids not being engaged. Was it an internet access issue, which we had very few who reported that being the issue. Making sure parents were aware how to log into Canvas and view expectations and how they could support their kid at home. They checked just to see if generally kids were overall apathetic and looking at it as, well, these are act of God days, they can't hurt me. And is that why they're not engaging? Thankfully, no one had reported at least back that was the reason they weren't engaging, so that's positive. But again, ask more of that, the personal aspect that goes along with that as well. Was somewhat sick at home and they were having to help take care of them. Have they had extra responsibilities now because of younger siblings, that sort of thing? Or are they just stressed and anxious and not necessarily sure what to do given the pandemic? And is that affecting them even being able to start and press go and start and engage online? So they were able to make some pretty significant contact there, and have been able to track that this week. Just looking at it from, again, the start of the remote learning plan, significantly fewer students are being recorded. Teachers do have till Friday to record who hasn't been engaged, but fewer students not being engaged at this point. So we're just looking to make sure that we track this so that we are really making sure that all of our kids are safe and being cared for and have everything that they need, both of course in the learning sense, but really just in making sure they're getting through the day to day, and we can do whatever we need to help support them.
Are there numbers on this sheet, Matt?
No, there's nothing on there just because of student privacy. That's just an example of a screenshot of what that looks like and how they're tracking that.
Well, I'm not asking for names. I was just wondering numbers of students that maybe aren't engaged. I can't see it because the photographs of people are on the right side of this slide that you have, so I can't see the entire slide.
Right. Sorry, it said at the high school you had about 300 that first week when we were under the old e-learning rules on the 13th through the 20th. There were about 350 students who did not participate.
Okay.
And then currently, again, teachers have until Friday to fill out the student engagement sheet. But currently, there are only 24 students listed as not engaged.
Oh,
at the high
wonderful.
school.
Wonderful.
And then at the elementary school, you're looking at under 20 per building. But again, you have that easier ratio with teacher to students there.
Okay.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Ann, did you have something?
Well, I thought it was kind of good. Dr. Adrian sent out an email to the parents at the high school and said, hey, there was 300 something kids who weren't on. And I thought it was good because it was like, I was checking, hey, you people are on, right? So I kind of liked it.
I also think the policy that if they're not engaged, that they will receive an incomplete is really strong and is probably causing a number of them to want to be engaged. So I think that policy is also hopefully driving that increased participation.
Yeah. And again, just to kind of circle back to the whole structure thing, as with the whole with the workload, as those expectations are being given to the students, and again, particularly at the secondary level, which is where I definitely feel that perhaps more of that 4 or 5 day continuous structure is probably wanted a little bit more. Again, teacher expectations, they're more than likely not being completed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So families can, if they are able, create a structure where the students are completing that work. Teachers are assigning these assignments with the understanding that they need to be giving manageable time for students to turn around and complete them. And as they are producing, again, good, authentic evidence that they've understood what is being delivered to them remotely, it is going to take a little bit more time. So again, families can restructure there. Formally, in terms of our plan, no, but that is just a thought as well. So.
Okay.
The teacher expectations, I'm not going to read through every bullet, and perhaps you've read through, but really it's just making sure that expectations are posted to Canvas by 9:30 each Tuesday through Thursday, that they're hosting those office hours on Monday through Friday, and linking links to Google Meet on their Canvas pages whenever they're going to be providing synchronous learning. So anything that's live where teachers are able to give on-demand feedback to students, take questions live, any of that. And then when that is done, again, because we do have a good number of students who can't necessarily engage when those teachers are able to go live, those are recorded, and then those videos can then be posted on Canvas for students to view later. And again, big focus there on that feedback.
Before you go on to that, is there also a requirement or expectation that teachers do provide grades so that students know how they're doing, even though I understand those grades can't take a student's grade down over the semester from the third quarter, but is there at least an expectation that teachers have to provide grades that parents and students will see in PowerSchool?
Yep. So as we otherwise allow teacher discretion for them to assign points as they so choose, the same is done here. It's just they need to make sure that students clearly know what is going to be 4 points, what's called a formative assignment, which the whole purpose of those is just to make both the student and the teacher aware of where each student is in the learning progression. So those shorter activities sometimes, some can be longer, but those don't necessarily have a grade attached to them. Would be summative assignments. Those otherwise do have grades attached to them, and would be looking to inform students about student progress in PowerSchool via grades that way. Absolutely. But in terms of there being the X number of assignments that need to be for points, no, we don't have that in the plan. Again, it's it's very much so like the classroom, where they just need to be upfront with students, let them know what's for points, and then really just focusing on that feedback.
But is it correct that I understand that even though they're giving grades, that at the end of 4Q, assuming that they don't go back to school, that they would still not get lower than the end of 3Q, like their grade would be back up? Is that correct?
Correct. So what teachers will be doing is making sure that they provide opportunities for students to remediate anything that they had scored lower than their overall performance in that third quarter. And again, that would be very much so specific based on the feedback that they got. These are the components you didn't get. Perhaps this is a time where we need to meet and talk about this concept that you clearly didn't understand. Then they get the opportunity to redo that and show teachers that they understand it, and then their grade improves.
I guess I'm back to the same question though. If they don't remediate, is it still going to be the same as the end of 3Q?
Then it's an assignment, because again, that's the guidance we were given, that then those assignments would be exempt. Correct.
Okay. All right.
I guess my only comment that I wanted to make is that to the extent that parents can continue to see grades, whether they count or not, at least parents can monitor and encourage students to put forth a good effort and, continue to work hard and continue to learn. And if we don't see the grades, then it's harder for parents to have that partnership and provide that encouragement to our students. So just want to make that comment.
And that is something that we are talking with teachers about as they are creating these assignments. Again, lots of newness here, but for those that wouldn't count because they were a formative assignment, we are saying that, again, that might be something good to enter into PowerSchool, but you would just exempt it. So students and parents can still see the grade in PowerSchool, but it just doesn't affect their overall grade.
That's perfect.
Okay. The next slide on social emotional support. We are, of course, pushing resources as they come available in any communication we send out, trying not to overwhelm families. Alyssa Hart and Emily Barnes had compiled an excellent student services palette with resources to help support students who not only receive either special education related services, but then also for social emotional support as well. Elementary counselors, I know, for example, simply because I have an elementary school kid in my class or in my house. Plus, I know this is what they were doing, but they reached out to students, offering times to meet with them. Again, middle and high school counselors are reaching out to unengaged students. So making sure that we are checking in and being someone that can help connect to resources, should that be something that comes about through that contact. And then at the secondary level, PE teachers, and this was something great that had started at the high school, but is happening at the middle schools as well. They're piggybacking up onto that. But high school and now middle, PE teachers are reaching out to those students all the other students who are otherwise engaged. So what they did is they took the rest of at the high school, for that first week, there were those 350 kids, right, that weren't engaged. So they took the remaining student population, so 11-ish hundred, split those students up between the PE teachers, and then the PE teachers reached out to their segment of kids and offered themselves as a resource, someone to talk to if they needed to, reminded them of healthy lifestyle habits during remote learning, just going to have something else to just kind of otherwise be another touch point with kids and make sure that they're getting what they need. So PE teachers were doing that in addition to their own things that they're posting online as well.
So that's just at the middle school and high school?
Correct. Yes.
How about the lower grades?
At the lower grades, that was part of the communication that had been received from school counselors. And then as students who weren't engaged were being contacted, either the building principal and or classroom teachers were doing that as well.
For K-5?
Yeah. And
okay,
so,
thank you.
And then they have more of that their focus is on their 25 or 30 students.
Okay.
So then again, that support just kind of naturally falls into that chunk of time as well. But yeah. The final slide here is just our communication. The remote learning page on the district website has been updated and posted and has been for quite some time. And in addition to that, a feedback form is available for any stakeholder to complete, and it has a range of just different areas that they can comment on. And we are asking for email addresses just so that we can follow back up with any questions that we may have. I know in the past with some surveys, there have been some comments that have come up that are either A, concerning, or B, just we just needed some additional information in order to address it. So again, that's available for people to leave comments there as well.
Well, thank you.
I just had one other question, and that was about finals. I was wondering if there was a way, I know we're not to that transition plan yet, but I would really, as a parent, I know, like to see finals offered even if it's done remotely, so that students have that learning exercise of reviewing all their material and having a test on it. Is there any talk of that?
We have had those conversations as an administrative team so far. You know, whether we go back May 1st or we don't, the preliminary discussion as of now has been that it wasn't necessarily in favor at this time, just not knowing what support students are getting at home and really wanting to focus on those reprioritized standards within the classroom and make sure that we're addressing those and focusing on those so they can be successful at the next level. But that's where we currently are. Currently, as the administrative team, we didn't feel that would be appropriate given just the circumstances. But obviously,
I mean, I guess I would not be in favor, of course, of it hurting a student's grade. I think you could still do it in the same way that fourth quarter is being done, so that if the final brings a student's grade down, obviously you wouldn't count it. But I think it'd be great to offer students the opportunity to bring up their grade with the final. And also for all the other students just to have the exercise of practicing finals and reviewing all the material, especially given that, you know, they're going to have summer off as well as not have the same intensity for these few months of e-learning.
Mm-hmm. And that's
So I would strongly be in favor of finals.
I would too, for the same reason that they're only in school 3 days a week, and they're going to go back in the fall, especially if we don't go back in May. It's just going to kind of push it through one more time to go over everything they've done for the entire semester, and hopefully it will hold better
Sure.
than if they didn't do finals.
Okay. Any other thoughts or questions in regards to finals or remote learning?
I have no further questions, but thank you. Anyone else?
Do we have any report on how many meals we're providing and how that's going?
I'm required to submit to the ROE every Friday how many meals we're serving, and we're averaging about 150 a day.
And is that consistent with the number of students we have on free and reduced lunch? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, are the people who would normally get the lunches from school still getting them?
I don't know for sure. I'll have to look into that. I hate to give an answer and be incorrect, but I think I would venture a guess that it's pretty consistent, because early on our numbers were much lower, and Lisa brought that to me, like, you know, I know we have more students on free and reduced than are taking the lunches. So she had her staff call those individuals and let them know that, you know, this was an option and it was available to them. And we also delivered to certain areas. And then we saw a large increase in numbers, and it's been steadily increasing since. So I'm guessing our numbers are probably even above that now. So I think we're probably pretty close, but I can't say for sure.
That's great. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Is anybody coming to the school, or are all the lunches being delivered?
It's a combination of both. There's curbside pickup and then also delivery for those that don't have transportation.
Nice. Well, thank you again to those workers that are doing that. We really appreciate it. Okay, any other questions before we move on to summer projects? Very good. Information regarding summer projects is included in the packet. I know there are several questions, so who wants to begin? Hello?
Don't be shy, guys. You sent quite a few questions.
Yeah, I mean, I've asked a lot of my questions, so I guess my first question is sort of on the process here. Like, how are we as a board going to decide what we're going to do and what we're not going to do? Can we have a discussion about what that process is going to be and the timing? Or any suggestions on that? Are we going to go through them one by one, or what?
I think we're going to have to go through them one by one, but I have a question first. Looking at the list, we're doing these projects this summer, which May, June, July. But the top of the sheet says it's for the fiscal year 21 budget. So this is not, all of these items on here are not related to this year's budget. They're for next year's budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. So, because I've also seen other correspondences that something about anything we spend over $500,000 is a deficit, puts us into a deficit. But how can that be if we haven't done the budget for next year yet? Am I misunderstanding something?
It's a projected tentative budget, Mike, for next year.
Yeah. Okay. What did we have in our budget this year for summer projects, just for a comparison?
We had, I believe it was a little over 600,000. Tom, is that right?
That sounds pretty close. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Going back, I guess I'll offer my opinions. Karen, to answer your question, I think we do need to go through them kind of one at a time. We've all seen what's happening about everywhere else. Bradley, OSF, Caterpillar. We're in the same boat. And to me, as I'm looking through this list, it's almost like we need to focus on those items that are absolutely critical, or those items that will offer us a savings in the future. Even though we're paying a little more now, we'll get the money back in the future. There'll be some kind of savings. So that's kind of how I framed it when I looked through this list. Just my thoughts.
I agree with you, Mike. I think we need to go through them line by line to determine what we want to do at this time, because I'm in complete agreement with everything that's going on with all these companies, and we continue to hear more.
Does this mean we're going to try to get this down to 500K?
Before we go through them, can everybody see my screen now? I pulled up the board book document. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
I cannot see it, but I've just lost the whole meeting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Huh.
Ann, my thoughts, I don't have a target figure.
Okay.
I think we for me, stay within those parameters that I talked about, and we'll see what it ends up at the end. If we have less, great. If it's necessary and we have some more, we may have to live with that. But
for me, I guess I am looking at a target of the 500,000, because I would like to stay within the budget of just having a balanced budget within this fund. I also think that we're going to have some potentially tough times in the next few years. And I know Damon answered my question about transferring of funds. And I feel like, given that we might be in a real crunch in the education fund, it'd be great to have some extra dollars to use from the reserves of the building fund if we would need that. And also, we're going to have some big projects in the building fund itself in that topic, and that is we'll have the football field that will need to be redone, and we'll also have potentially an expansion of a grade school. So I feel like we need to save up for that, but also save up and hoard money in case we need more in the education fund in the next few years.
Karen, I have to disagree with you. There's so little money that comes in the building fund compared to the other funds. I just feel like if we use money from the building fund for those purposes, we'll be sorry in the long run. But I do agree we need to stick to a budget. I'm not sure that I am familiar with the auxiliary gym floor and going by these line by line, I think would be great, but we're going to have to rely on our experts here because many of these areas I'm not familiar with, and I know I spoke to some of you and you said the same thing. We'll have to, get some feedback here, but I think we probably, I guess you want to go through each one of these items and discuss them. So I guess we should start at the top right here with gymnasium floor sanding.
I have a question. Are we going to have any money like left over from this year in this budget or not?
Yeah, and we'll have a surplus probably in this year's budget. Some of the information I sent out on Friday was we started this fiscal year with a $2.5 million fund balance in the operations and maintenance fund. And looking at the numbers, and again, we still have 3 months left, but I think we'll probably see some kind of surplus in this as well. So we'll probably add to that fund balance a little bit. So we'll probably start FY21 with a larger than $2.5 million fund balance in O&M. Not for sure exactly, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
About how much?
Let me see if I can.
I mean, just approximate spit in the bucket kind of thing.
Yeah, I think we're probably talking, maybe 300,000, 400,000.
Excess over?
Yes. Again, don't quote me on that until we get to the end of the fiscal year because we just never know what's going to come up in the end. But yeah, we have a trend of having those surpluses in that fund.
And that's helped a lot by the new facility tax.
Well, actually, Abby, that all goes into either Fund 30 or in Fund 60. So really Fund 20 is kind of standing on its own. The one thing you also want to keep in mind about the operations and maintenance fund is it is pretty much solely property tax, local revenue. We don't rely on any kind of state funding for anything in the operations and maintenance fund.
So the building fund would be the one that would get the facility? It's for buildings, right?
The operation, yeah, you're talking about the county facility sales tax?
Facility, yes.
Yeah, that's going into, that goes in, 90,000 of that each month goes into pay the alternate revenue bonds. That goes into bond and interest.
Okay.
And the excess of that goes into Fund 60 capital project. So it's actually separate from O&M.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so how are we going to go about this, Mike? Or Teresa, you have the spreadsheet. Do you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, can we just start at the top, start working our way through, and everybody can chime in on what they think.
Okay, so are we going off what's on our screen or on this spreadsheet that Teresa had for us?
It's the same information, Abby. If you want to go off the spreadsheet, it's in the same order that you see there.
Okay.
I think we should prioritize that 1, 2, and 3. 1 being highest, that has to be done now. 2 would be pushed out, and 3 would be pushed out further.
Okay, so I think Tom's going to be very helpful with this because he knows what will need to be, basically the health, life, safety, especially. So I guess we start with gymnasium floor sanding. Where are we on this one?
I think these are all, these kind of they go together.
Right. The first three are one process.
Okay.
And these 3 items would complete the renovation of the high school gymnasium, which was the painting, the new bleachers, and to come through and refinish the floor. That would take care of a 2-year project. That way we would get out from underneath it. And as I've said before, this is one that we can certainly mark as a 2 or a 3. I did not put that on the the spreadsheet that has the explanations. So that's up to you guys. Would we like to do it? Sure. That way it gets that project out from underneath us.
Hey, Tom, can we do this way instead of going line by line? Let's go by building. Dunlap High School, I've got the items listed there. From your perspective, what are items that absolutely cannot wait, have to be done?
Well, and that's a good question, Scott. So if we went to the next spreadsheet that I put out that has the explanations, then I had gone through and taken and only listed the things that we really need to do this summer. And that has brought the cost down considerably. So,
I know I saw that, but I think I saw several different emails this past week, and so it was kind of hard to keep them all together. But I think looks like Scott's looking for it for us.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. I've gotten several of those as well.
And Scott, I can't see the screen, so I don't know if there's something you can do on your end to help me see it, or if I need to do something on my end.
Do you happen to have the spreadsheet that Cheryl sent, Karen? Karen?
I have one that Teresa sent.
I'm sorry, Teresa. So that might be helpful if we used hers for our own notes, because that way you could keep up with us.
That's right, and I think there might, I was sharing the screen before. I'm just asking if there's a way for me to see it again.
Go back one more.
I'll reshare the screen.
Thank you.
All right, which tab you want me on?
With explanations.
This one?
No, with explanations.
It says explanations right there.
There we go. Okay.
This one or this one?
That one.
Okay.
This one. All right. So this spreadsheet here, I went through and revised from the original, which the original we came in about 850 or 60,000. I went through and really earmarked the things that, in my opinion, we should look at and do. So for Dunlap High School, we have listed the new RTU for the pool locker rooms. This unit's past its life expectancy. This requires additional repair, and we can do this with our own in-house staff.
So that would be, would you consider that be a 1 for first priority?
Yes, and that's an HLS fund.
Okay.
What is RTU?
Rooftop unit.
Okay, thank you.
That's what provides the heating and the cooling for all 4 of the locker rooms in the swimming pool area and the main hallway, the entry. Okay. All right, the second one is the stadium electrical rework. This was not a part of the new bleacher project. This is a configuration that is probably 25 years old. It's been added to 2 or 3 times in the past. The equipment is old. It's really shown wear and tear. It's not safe.
So that would be a 1 to you?
That would be a 1.
Okay.
That also would come out of HLS funding.
Okay, health, life, safety, very good.
Okay. And then I listed the gym floor to finish that project. So you've got the floor sanding, the floor refinishing, and then the new artwork and lettering on the floor.
So we would probably consider that a 2 or a 3 as far as has to be done. Be nice
Correct.
to have it done. Okay. All right. All right. So then Dunlap Middle School is next.
Can I
Yes.
go?
Ann?
I had a question on the striping and the ceiling, which I know is a lot of money. it's just when you drive in, it just doesn't look good. It's the first thing you see. I don't know.
Are you talking about the gym floor?
No, I'm talking about it's not even on here anymore. I'm talking about the parking lot.
Okay.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I have one thought on that. You know, when we go through these type of times, these economic conditions, perception is out there, and some may see that that's not a critical need, as people would see it. So, you know, I just know from my background, when we look at things, you always have to look at perception when we're going through these type of times. So I wouldn't consider that high. That's just my opinion at this point.
Are you talking about the striping or the floor? Okay.
The striping.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I agree with Teresa on that, particularly since we have not had the traffic study or studies done and really received any direction from that piece itself. And it's pretty expensive. You're just under $60,000 to seal coat and restripe and redirect. So that was one of the reasons.
I'm sorry.
That was one of the reasons why I pulled it out.
Okay, so but in the meantime, we could get some of those signs up. That would help with some of that. Okay, thank you, Tom.
Yeah, we're just they're just in a slow down period. As soon as we should get most of them Friday, and we'll get started putting those out.
Thank you, thank you. So are we ready for DMS now, guys?
If I could, I'd just like to step back and talk about the floor finishing. You know, that seems like low-hanging fruit, especially it's almost $43,000. And I respect Tom's opinion on that. I did talk with Katie Caslett about it. And, you know, if we're going to have athletic teams, there are things we have to do to keep them up. That floor hasn't been done for 10 years. And at some point we will have to do it. Whether it's this year, if we don't do it this year, we'll clearly have to do it next year. So bear that in mind as we go through. Okay.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
I had a question on back to the parking lot stuff. Would there be a way to take out some of those arrows? I don't know if you can cover them up or something that says one way when people are going both ways. Is there a way to cover it?
I would think so.
Okay.
We could get covering over that.
All right. And my question on the gym floor, if we do it, Mike, would you be okay waiting? Is there a reason we have to do the floor art and the lettering? Can you do the other without that, or does it all need to be together?
All three, that's a 3-step piece.
Okay.
In other words, you're going to have to come in and sand the floor down to the bare wood. So you have to do all of it at one time.
All right.
And then they seal it.
Okay.
All right. Shall we move on to DMS then? Okay.
Okay.
All right, Tom.
Let's see. We have the back parking lot repairs for the storm drain. So I don't know how many of you have been back behind there, but all of our parking lots are shaped so that water travels to the storm sewers. And this particular area has dropped significantly, and now we're to a point where we don't want to sustain any damage to the storm pipe itself. So that's the reason why this is on this list, and here again, that would come out of HLS funding.
And you'd say that would be a 1 priority?
I would say that's a 1, yes.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
I do too. I mean, those structural things, you don't want to mess with that. I had a building where the whole darn parking lot caved in because it was washing away from the storm. So that's something you want to get to before that happens.
I would agree. Before we go on, are we going to go through Tom's entire list, or are we going to stop at each school and see if the board is pretty much in concurrence with his assessments of the priorities?
Would you like to do it that way? Just that right now to talk about the high school and get it out of the way?
It seems to me that it makes sense instead of
okay.
then
All right.
coming back. I guess
Mike, I'm in agreement with you for us to go line by line, and if there whatever's critical that needs to be done, if that's where we are, that we only want to do the number one critical things, then let's just do that. I mean, to go through and look at, line by line, I don't know. I just feel like we're getting in the weeds here just a bit.
I think we have to get in the weeds, Cheryl. With the budget we've got, it falls on our shoulders.
No, I get that, but I'm just wondering, because we have 7 people, deciding what they think might be important. But, if you have looked at it, and I think Teresa's, you guys have done the deep dive and you've done it with Tom at some point, then we just gotta, agree on something here.
I have looked through it. I know Teresa has, and I'll probably add in if I disagree with something Tom is saying. All I was suggesting was, before we go on from one school to the next, Tom's given us his assessment of priorities. If the board has real heartburn over one of those, we ought to jump in, and instead of flopping around and coming back and all of that.
Okay, so let's go with the high school then. We didn't talk about the stadium electrical rework, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Okay, so we prioritized those things as a first. Does everybody agree with the pool, locker room, and the stadium electrical rework as being a top priority?
One, correct.
A number one. Karen?
I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Okay, so then those are things that we do feel need to be done this year. How about the gymnasium floor? Does everyone feel that priority should be a 2 or even a 3?
Yes.
Mike,
I think it should be a 2.
I'm sorry?
I think it should be a 2, and anything that is a 2 would be looked at prior to the 3. So as we phase this through based on economic conditions, right?
Yep,
Does anyone feel that the gym floor should be a 3?
I have it either a 2 or 3. I don't know, but definitely not a 1. And we're only
Tim?
Right. I give it a 2 or 3.
Okay, so we're all on the same page there. All right then. So we're done with the high school. Let's move on to the middle school. I'm sorry, Tom. We kind of got off track here.
No, that's fine. I understand that.
Okay,
All right,
so the storm drain, we all do agree that should be a 1 because that is a structural thing. So
Yes.
the next is the updated LED lighting in the commons.
Correct. Now, this area, the lighting is inadequate. They're fixtures that are original to when the building was constructed. Now, normally I would say, well, we can get by with that. But that particular area, it has dual purpose. It's their lunchroom and their common area. And then for all of the afternoon, that area is set up and used as a classroom.
Oh, okay.
So the lighting is just not adequate for that type of function. And here again, that would come out of HLS funding.
Are there any
Tom, can I ask you a couple of questions on some of these with the new LED lighting? You gave us information about the Ameren rebates and then a significant year-to-year savings.
Yes.
I didn't see any information on this. Does that apply to this lighting?
It does, Mike, but to be very honest with you, it will be marginal for an area just of how small that area is.
Okay.
Now, if you take that into conjunction with doing the entire school, we've already done the hallways 2 summers ago with LED fixtures, and eventually we'll get to do all the classrooms. So all of these components, we add them together, sure, you'll add up to significant savings.
Yeah, so you're putting a 1 on that item?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
Okay, how about the additional cameras?
Here again, that
Have we
to
had
me,
vandalism or has there been issues with people?
yes, there are blind spots, and it just seems as if the kids just find these blind spots. There's been a couple of altercations, according to Antonio, and he has requested that we get cameras to cover all of the blind spots that he knows of.
Does every school have cameras in every blind spot?
Over the last 2 years, we have picked up, I want to say 3 buildings because of that. We started the camera upgrade 3 years ago. We finished those last summer. So yes, once they've gotten all their new systems in, they have gone through and they do find areas with blind spots, and we have tried pretty hard to cover all of those.
Okay, so would you?
Has
I'm sorry.
has DVMS done the upgrade with the security cameras?
Dunlap Valley?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so
We
would
did
you
that last
consider?
summer.
I have, Tom, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The vandalism that has occurred because they cannot see this, what type of cost impact is that to repair whatever vandalism has occurred? Will this pay for itself, basically, is what I'm asking?
Oh, I think so. Definitely that, and I think it's more of an ease of mind for the administration and the instructors in each of these buildings.
Let me make a suggestion. We're watching our pennies here, but we're not going to make or break our budget on a $4,200 item. We're going to spend a lot of time on something. Maybe we should focus on some of the more expensive items.
Well, I think that I'd like to go through and get each school taken care of. So does everybody agree that this 42,000 would be a 1 or 2?
4,200.
I'm sorry, 4,200, not 14.
A 1 for me.
Yes.
Okay, and
I'm okay with all Tom's projection. He's saying all 3 of the DMS projects would be a 1. I don't know that I have a problem with any of that.
I'm good.
Yeah, I agree.
okay, we're done with DMS then. All those projects seem to be a top priority. Let's go to DGS then.
All right.
Okay, 5 new window units, air conditioners.
Yes.
Are these not working? They're past their life.
Yes, they are past their expected life. And I've got 2 buildings that we are on a rotation program, the other being Wilder Waite. This is our third year. I've got a 5-year plan in place for both to rotate out all of their window units and put new ones in.
Okay,
So,
thank you. Yeah, I've seen some of those that have the covers off of them. So you would say that would be a top priority.
yes.
Okay, upgrade interior lighting, the 50,000. Now, as Mike said, that's a pretty high ticket item there.
Right. So,
Yeah.
Here's how I look at this. We're getting a substantial discount to do this, or a rebate of $17,650. And then on top of that, we've got projected annual savings of almost $8,500 annually.
Yeah, that's okay. Does everyone agree that would be a top priority? Mike, I know you were going to say something. Mike?
Okay, yeah, that's a big ticket item, but here's the thing. Given the savings we're going to make on the thing, that thing pays for itself in 6 years. And
Okay.
for that, the $8,400 or approximately $8,400 is a savings. And for every year after that, it's a savings. So that one is one that actually, over the long term, puts money in our pocket. Those are the kind of things that I consider a good investment.
Yeah,
Right.
we always did those, and I think most of us would agree. The exhaust fans, that has to be done because that's health, life, safety. Correct, Tom?
Yes, I would. Here's where we're at with that. We have 2 years to do that.
Oh,
Now, we, in the past, have gotten caught by waiting to the very last year on a 10-year survey to do some of the larger projects. And I know in the last fiscal crunch, there were some things that did not get done in time. So that's why I'm pushing to do that this summer, because we may not have the money in order to do that next summer.
and you don't want to have to ask for an extension. Okay, but does everyone feel that the new exhaust fans should be a first priority, or do you want to put that at 2 because it can be done next year as long as we get on it? Teresa?
I'm okay with it being a 1.
Okay, a 1. So we've got everything at DGS seems to be a 1 then.
I'm going to jump in. That's one that I could put as a 2 myself. If we've got another year, we've got a lot of reserves still, so we'll find the money for it.
Right. Okay, I agree with you, Mike. So that's the only one that we could put off if we had to. So we can come back to that if we find that we're not getting as far down as we need to be. All right, let's move on to DVMS.
It's Cheryl. I was just jumping in to see exactly what we're putting at a 2 versus a 1.
The new
based on
gym,
what Tom told us.
the new gym exhaust fan.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now, I know some of you don't think we should go by this line by line, and my initial thought was, here, I want to give you a budget line item and you figure out what to do, administration. But I know that many of you want to go through this, so we're almost halfway there, so I'll keep going. DVMS, theater lighting, LED upgrades, health, life, safety, $7,000. Any thoughts on this one?
How soon do we have to get this one done?
Well, it's not something that's in the health, life, safety 10-year study, right? It's just something that they want to do to save money, just like the LED lighting in the commons that we were talking about earlier.
Well, here's where we're at, and here's the reason why it's moved its way up the list. So now Deadline Valley Middle School, the proper, is right at 10 years old, and we're at the life expectancy of those light fixtures, the existing in their theater. And I know you've all been in the theater, and it's a stepped floor, or as far as the seating. So it's not a level floor, and it's extremely difficult for us to have a contractor get in with a special lift to get up and replace light bulbs or replace ballasts that each of those light fixtures run off of. So I got a price on new LED light fixtures, and those will typically go 10 years or more, and they don't use a ballast for eliminating a potential breakdown.
And so you don't have to bring in the lift, or we used to call it the cherry picker. We had to bring. What do you think? Any thoughts about this, Tim or Mike?
How often do you have to bring a lift in?
Every other year, at least, Tim, and it's about a $2,000 charge plus whatever the cost of the fixtures and the ballast or the bulbs.
I'd give that a 2, probably.
It's kind of expensive.
Mike? Any thoughts, Mike?
Yeah. I'm looking at Tom. I'm looking at your your April 6th email to us, and you said on this one we're risking nothing by waiting. So
Correct.
So you think that's a 2 as well, Mike?
we could assign a 2 to it. I understand what Tom's saying, but
Right.
I'd
Go
put
ahead.
I'd put it as a 2 because it's a theater. I don't think it's as important as like the Commons. So
Teresa?
I'm okay with putting it at a 2. I think once we get through this and I can sum it up, we can see where we're at. So we may go back to those smaller ones.
Okay, very good. Everyone else agree? Any other comments?
nope. Yep.
All right, second grade classroom tile. Is this a student with the asthma? I've seen the emails and I don't think we need a whole long explanation, but apparently this student moves every year. So whatever room that student's in gets new tile that year.
That is correct.
Is there any way that child could maybe stay in the same classroom and the teachers could switch rooms? I mean, or is this something that, I mean, it seems kind of counterproductive that every year, every classroom has to get new tile at the tune of $7,000.
Right. That's
agree, Abby.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 5,200.
That would be a question that Mr. Fairchild would really have to answer. I can't speak to how he sets up his.
I understand, but you know, I know teachers do not like to have to move their classrooms, but this is an ongoing expense every year for one particular child that I think we could make an accommodation and actually save some money, but I could be wrong. Anyone else have any feelings about that?
Yeah, Tom, what year is this student?
He is going into second grade.
Yeah, so this is going to be 4 more years. Yeah, I'm going to have a hard time voting to spend this much every year when I think it we could save a lot of money, $20,000 or more by moving the teachers around a little bit. So
what is the age of that flooring in the first place? Does it need to be upgraded anyway just because of age? So we'd be replacing it irregardless at some point soon, with or without the student?
Well,
Right.
It sounds like we have to do it anyway, right, Tom? We don't have any choice whether we do it.
Right now, the existing surface is carpeting, and this carpeting is, I want to say, 11 or 12 years old. So are we getting, pretty close to its life expectancy? Yes. Should we get probably 2 or 3 more years out of the carpeting? I would like to think so.
Tom,
Yes.
when we upgrade in classrooms, is best practice what we do is put carpeting in? Is that correct?
Actually, Teresa, that depends upon what the floor surface is in the building.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to say. Do the teachers like carpeting or they like tile? The tile is a little more noisy, I would think.
Don't we have the square tiles now of carpeting where you can put down tiles of carpeting? So if there's
Carpet squares.
Right.
the one.
That's all. That's predominantly what we put down now is carpet squares. Yes.
People like the tile because it is a lot cleaner. I've I was administrator in buildings that had carpet that was 30 years old and it was cleaned and steam cleaned every single year. So, 10 years may be the end of the life for carpeting, but I've certainly seen it last much longer than 10 years when it's maintained and cleaned. How about we just put that as a 1/2, and if it's an item we want to come back to, we can?
Well, I guess I have a question, Tom. Are we required? I think it sounds to me like we're required to do this for this student's health. We don't really have a choice, do we?
That is correct.
Has it already been done for this year or for the past year?
We have done it for the last 2 years. His kindergarten and his first grade year.
So there are two classrooms that have already been tiled.
Correct.
And we don't think that we could move and allow him or her to stay in that classroom instead of having to do this every year.
What middle schools are going to go to?
Let me talk to Greg
Exactly,
and
Tim.
see what the layout and logistics of that are. Yes, if he moves up in grade and changes classrooms, we're required to put the tile in. The question is, can he stay where he's at and we move the teachers to him? I'll have to talk to Greg and find out what that's going to look like logistically.
Okay, thank you.
I got one more, Abby, I got one more question.
Sure, Teresa.
As I'm looking at the previous list before you slimmed this list down, there was a lot of carpeting on it. The high school had carpet, the middle school had carpet. Tim, that was exactly the same question I was thinking. When they get to the middle school, do we have carpet in those rooms? I haven't been in there for a while. Are those carpeted as well?
Yes, both middle schools have carpeting.
So will we have to do that when this particular student gets there? And in the middle school, you're going from classroom to classroom.
Yes. And that is a very good point, Teresa. So I don't have a good answer for you there. The only thing I do know is, because I challenged that question as well. Do we have to accommodate him for every grade? And the answer was yes, that we do. So I'm not sure what we do if that child was still in the school district in 4 years.
Shouldn't we wait and discuss that when he gets to middle school, since he's not there yet?
And I agree. Yes,
Okay.
we're trying to determine what to do this year.
Right. I also think we probably need to check with our attorney and find out what our obligations are. And you may have already done that, Scott. I don't know. But anyway, let's come back to this one.
Okay.
All right. That was at Banner. So that's the only thing we're looking to do at Banner. That was the only item at Banner?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to put a little asterisk by that. All right.
Now,
Playground.
Abby, if you don't mind, I do want to talk a little bit more about Banner. On these lists that I have put together, I have not included the $50,000 contribution for their playground. And my reasoning is, if we are cutting, in my consideration, much needed work to be done, then that's not a decision that I'm going to make. I'm going to certainly lay that at the feet of the board to make that determination.
Tom, can you refresh my memory? And what is that 50,000 consist of?
Well, if you go back to, I want to say, I think October of last year, Greg Fairchild and his PTO gave a presentation on a new playground, or a playground configuration that is all-inclusive. Now, Banner has the majority of our special needs kids or handicapped kids, and the PTO would like to have a much more inclusive playground as far as accessibility and usability. And they came up with a fairly extensive design. And I think their cost came out to about $250,000. They went out and they raised approximately $100,000. And then they approached the board for a contribution to help fund some of that remaining balance. Is that a pretty fair assessment, Scott?
Yeah, I think
that's a
we
fair
all
assessment.
recall that now. Teresa, you remember this now? The PTO went out and bought the cattle, or had money that collected, and they bought a really nice playground equipment without really considering the legwork it would take for the infrastructure, or for the the surfacing. And so they kind of threw that back at the board and said, hey, now we need to have this. And so that's what we're talking about here.
I agree. I guess my question is, and I remember that presentation right in me, but if I recall correctly, 50,000 of that was install. So how much of this, and I know it's been, condensed here. We're not, they're not going to get the Taj Mahal here, right? They're not for the additional equipment. So out of that 50,000, how much is install? How much is the rubber surface?
Well, Teresa, when we talked with Greg, we meaning Scott and I, we arbitrarily cut the size down, and then we went back to Greg with a list of additional questions which I didn't feel they had answers for. So the cost of the surface itself, we were able to get down to just under $35,000. And then there was approximately $15,000 of additional work that they didn't take into account. So that's how a figure of $50,000 was arrived at from the district, so to speak.
So is part of that install, or is most of that material? Is the surface, when you say surface, is that just the material?
No, that would be a turnkey for them. That would be material and labor to install.
Install just the surface or everything?
That would just be the surface.
All right.
Well, the surface and the base.
Well,
the base is imperative because for the warranty to be valid, it has to be put down on a base that meets their specifications, which they didn't have originally in their specs. So the original had the entire playground area in the rubber surface. We cut that back to just the area around the equipment that's needed. And then the base work would need to be done around just the equipment. And it came out to about 50,000.
I have a question, Dr. Dearman. Originally, I thought I recalled Jay Greening saying that we did not have to make this expenditure, but then it seemed like later there was a feeling that we maybe did. What is the legal requirement? Are we required to provide accessible playground to these students?
I think it might be beneficial to speak to the legal counsel that represents our special ed association, because they would probably have a better feel for this. I don't know. What do you think, Scott?
Well, Tom and I have talked to a number of people and tried to talk to a number of people about what is specifically required under the ADA compliance, and it's challenging to get a straight answer at times. So we can certainly reach out to those people and get further guidance, but I'm pretty comfortable with where we're at.
Okay. I think it might be wise. And I think we do have our council that represents the Special Ed Association at SEPCO. They might be a good resource to give a call. We can talk about that later, but they might be a very good resource.
If I can say something.
Sure.
What are they doing with all that equipment? Did they get it all in? It's sitting on the side of their parking lot, isn't it?
That is correct, Tim. It is.
Are they installing it?
Pardon me?
They can't install it until something else happens?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, that's my question. If we put it, if once the base goes in, what else? How are they going to get all of that stuff installed that's sitting on the side right now?
If I understand Greg correctly, he does have some volunteer help lined up to do that installation.
I don't know, Mike. Would it be an option that you and I go over and talk to Greg if Tom's pushing this off to us? Would you want to do that?
That's unnecessary. We've got it under control, but thank you for the offer.
And Tom, I know I've talked to Greg about the install, and I do believe we have a very qualified person that can lead that team. So that's why I was specifically asking about that install.
Yes.
So the cost.
Okay, well, I think we can.
Wait, one second, Abby. So the cost may be reduced if we can get people to help with that install. If I understood you right, Tom.
No. That 50,000 covers
Just for the surface, the surface.
right, the removal of the existing surface that's down. That will cover the cost of some new edging for a smaller area. That 50,000 would include the new base material, and that would include the cost of the new surface material.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at the next item, the Hickory
What's our
Grove.
next steps on that, Abby?
I'm sorry?
What are the next steps there for that playground?
Well, they're going to have to, before they can install it, they need the surfacing. And I think,
No.
I
Was
think
somebody going to talk to an attorney or legal counsel?
I would suggest talking to the legal counsel that represents the Special Ed Association of Peoria County, which we do still have some association with. They have an attorney that deals specifically with these type of requests, and I think just one simple call might be worth it to find out exactly what our obligations are here. I mean, none of us want this not to be installed, but I think the cost factor is pretty prohibitive, and it's preventing us from doing other items on a list here that actually have been waiting for years and years. So I just think it would be helpful to have that guidance.
So is that something you're going to do, Dr. Dearman? Is that correct?
He's going to do it. Thumbs up.
Okay. And this,
Okay.
do you mind if I jump in for just a second, Cheryl? Have we promised the $50,000 commitment, and orally or otherwise?
No.
Okay.
Cheryl, we have not officially committed to anything. They understand that we, meaning Scott and I, have approached the board and have asked or are asking the board for a $50,000 commitment.
Okay.
Didn't they also have another company that was going to match as soon as they found out what the district's part of this would be? They said they'd be willing to also put in some money if they knew what the district's commitment was going to be. Wasn't that something that you all remember?
I think that was a hospital. Was it OSF?
So is it
I don't
possible?
think it was a commitment.
It was Unity Point.
Were you okay?
And they said they weren't willing to commit any dollars to the project until they knew what the district was going to commit.
Okay, well, perhaps.
I think with the times changing, I don't know that you can count on that now.
That's possible too, but we could also see if, they'd be willing maybe to put up half of this. But anyway, I think we need to get moving on here. We have a lot of things to discuss, and we can check and see what our obligation on that would be. Hickory Grove Elementary Playground resurfacing and painting. I've not really looked at that, so if anybody's had a chance.
So what we have is the playground is a blacktop surface. And over time, that surface now is at 9 years, almost 10 years old. Excuse me. That's a very wet area. And over time, through freezing, thawing over winters, it has disintegrated areas of that blacktop. So we did a little bit more investigation, and then we've come to find out that there was only a 3-inch layer of blacktop put down for that playground. We've got several areas that are significantly cracked. We also had a fairly large area, probably 50 square feet, completely fall apart to where we had to come in this winter and dig it out and fill it up with white rock and put cones around it so the kids would not run through it, trip, or fall into it.
So basically you're saying this would be a 1, correct?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay, Tim or Mike, have you had a chance to go over there? I know one of you said you'd seen it.
I did, and I agree. It probably had a very poor base underneath it.
So you also agree it's a 1.
I think so.
Okay, that's good enough for me. Anyone else have a comment? We'll move on then. Wilder Waite, second year application of gym floor, O&M, $41,000. $4,150. I'm sorry. This is so small I can hardly see it. I need to be looking on the screen, I guess.
No, that's all right. So last year we completely sanded down and stripped the floor and refinished it. This is the second year application or the finish coat of that process.
Okay, somebody's wanting to make a suggestion, and I don't know who.
I was just thinking maybe he goes through and instead of giving an explanation for each one, just say whether it's a 1, 2, or 3.
Can you speak up?
I was just wondering if he could go through and suggest a 1, 2, or 3 for each item, and if we disagree, then he can explain what it is, but it might make it quicker.
Yeah, rather than having a detailed explanation each time. Okay, that sounds good to me. Or if we have additional questions. So you would say that this $4,000 is number 1, Tom?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, the 5 new window air units, again, same as with the grade school. You think that's a number 1?
Yes.
The door closures required by FM. What's FM?
FM is the state fire marshal.
Okay, so that has to be done.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a time frame when that has to be done?
Actually, they gave us a little longer because of our relationship with the ROE. I was given an extension from the ROE, but it has to be done before our October inspections.
Sounds like a 1. Okay.
Okay, that's a 1. Okay, upgrade interior lighting. Same. Is this the same with the other thing with the rebates and all that, Mike? You also agree that's a 1?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a good investment.
Okay, so we're not knocking many things off here, but I have to say I think the older grade schools often do have a lot more things that need to be done. So that's just my opinion. District roof preventative maintenance.
Well, can we just see if anybody has any objection to those?
Anyone have any objections to those at Wilder Waite? Any of those at Wilder Waite?
My one objection is we got a lot of lights going in, and do we have enough money? So let's get through all of them.
Get through all of what, Ann?
All of these. It seems like we want to do everything. So let's just wait till.
And then
She wants to get through all of these and see what the total tally is.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Then let's look at district. I don't know where in district this is. It just says roof preventative maintenance. Is this throughout the whole district? Yes or no?
Yes.
Tom, are these just budget numbers for the most part? You don't have specific line items for where these go. These are just things that have to be done. And
correct.
So that's potholes.
Yeah, so some of that money will be spent at Dunlap Middle School. Some of that money will be spent at Dunlap High School or Banner. It depends upon how these buildings and our roofs come through late spring and early summer storms, what kind of repairs we'll need to do, what kind of general maintenance we'll need to do over summer.
Okay, thank you. So basically you have to do your annual fire inspections. I know that. Athletics, yes. What is athletic field treatments? We're talking about, are you talking about grass? Are you talking about the AstroTurf? We're talking about
this is for the turf for the soccer field. And this is an ongoing program that we are in order to maintain and enhance the turf for the.
So $12,000 is an ongoing expense for the soccer field. Or do you mean yearly?
Yes, yearly. And I was not a fan of this. But unfortunately, it's something that we have gotten ourselves into. And yes, it is expensive. Now, has it made a tremendous difference in the soccer field? Absolutely. So
Okay. All right.
That's a difficult one.
Okay. Architectural fee, health, life, safety, that has to be done. So,
Correct.
Anne, were you going to say something?
I'm sorry. What happens if you wait a year on the soccer field?
What happens if you wait a year on the soccer field? Is that something that has to be done every year? Can it be done every other year?
Well, Tim probably could chime in on that. I mean, so if we don't do any of the treatments at all, are we going to have weeds, overtake the soccer field? Probably fairly significantly, yes.
Okay, so
Now,
is this done in-house, or is this a service that we pay someone else to come and do?
No, this is a service that the athletic department has brought in. Scott Adrian and Katie Caslett are very comfortable with who does this service for them. So
have we ever? Is it the same one every time? Do we put it out for bid, or?
This is the same company, as far as I understand. They actually get the bid for me, and I put this into the spreadsheet.
Tom, I can jump in a little bit on this because I know some of the history of this. This has been ongoing because when the soccer field was put in, whoever did it did not put back in the topsoil. So what you got is a bunch of clay, and they're trying to grow grass on it. And it's taken all this time to get it to where they do have good turf out there. My only question, Tom, does it take $12,000 forward? Is there at some point, can we back off of that a little bit, or can we bid that out or something just to see if we can affect some savings? I'm not saying we can, I'm just asking the question.
And that's a good question, Mike. To be quite honest with you, I'm not a fan of this. And that's why we don't treat every one of our properties, because in my opinion, and please I don't mean to offend anyone, but this is a racket. Once you get stuck in it, you're in it. So
however, keep this in mind. Our stadium has AstroTurf or whatever it's called, and so you don't have this. But the cost of that going in every year is substantially more than grass and treating grass that you have on your soccer field. So, in the big picture, this grass lasts and lasts and lasts. You just have to put the fertilizer on it and the other treatments so that you don't get the weeds and mold, and etc.
Is this something that our maintenance
having
crew
to put in AstroTurf?
Is this something that our maintenance crew can do now, since they're not having as much cleaning of the buildings, given that no students are there?
No, not in my opinion. And I think Tim would readily agree. If we would put the wrong treatment down, we would burn that grass up and lose the whole thing.
Okay.
And I don't want to be responsible for that.
Okay.
I honestly think it's necessary, Tom. I'm just asking you to check and see. Maybe we can bid it. Maybe we can get. I don't know how many times they're putting the fertilizer on, and it's
right.
If I'm on,
Go ahead, Tim.
am I on? I lost my connection here on my video, but I mean, I think you can treat sod for about $100 an acre, and I don't know how big your soccer fields are, but you can find someone to spread that, and not for $12,000. I really think that's really high. I didn't catch that cost earlier. How many soccer fields are you talking about?
One, right?
Yes, yeah. Just the one.
One soccer field, $12,000 a year.
I agree with Tim. It seems like a pretty extensive
okay.
number to me.
I wouldn't do that.
And I think it's a deal of excellent or good enough. And maybe we need just to get to good enough.
Is part of that cost, Tom, also the grooming of the turf? They go in and basically take that lawn rake and take the crumb rubber and basically fluff up the field. And I think that's part of the reason it's lasted so long is because we have done the proper maintenance on it. Is that part of that cost as well? Because I do find it hard to believe we're dropping $12,000 just on fertilizer.
They're aerating it and all that. Is that what they're doing as well?
That is correct. It's a full-fledged program, and what I'll do is I can send out their quote, and it lists. It's a very detailed list of all the activities that they will do.
Okay, let's maybe we can get a better price on that. In the meantime, I think we should probably continue to work down this list if no one else has any other comments. Architectural fee, we know that has to be done. Replace a 36-year-old upright freezer. Well, 36 years old is pretty darn old.
Yep.
Hatco tabletop 12-gallon hot water. I have no idea what that is. Is that a steam table?
No, that actually is a boiling pot, and that sets. It's an integral piece for any one of the kitchens, and we're looking to replace one.
Okay, and that 36-year-old double stack convection oven.
Yes.
That's a number. Not so these last three items you would say are number ones as well.
Yes.
And on that one, is that because of the age, Tom, or is that because of maintenance issues? I know sometimes older appliances can be more reliable.
Actually, at this point, Karen, it's both.
Okay.
We have a lot of our equipment where replacement parts are getting extremely scarce.
Okay, thank you.
20-year-old door cooler.
Two-door cooler.
20-year-old two-door cooler. Okay.
Right. And then a 20-year-old two-door warmer.
And you're saying all those are number one priorities.
Yes.
All right. Bus rotation, 5 new buses. Now that's a pretty big chunk of change. And I know that we agreed to do the bus rotation because buses hadn't been replaced in a long time. And we worked really hard to get that done. But it looks like,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it looks like this is kind of a bone of contention for some. So I know the explanation. I've seen the emails, and I think many of you have as well. Do any board members have any comments on this, the 5 new buses?
I'm not sure this is the year for it. It's a lot of money.
Mike, any comments? I can't hear Mike.
I don't see him there.
Here we go.
Yes, Tom.
Yeah, here you go. I love to stay on top of things too, but we got to find some places to save. It's that simple. If we're going to keep all our staff, we're going to keep all our programs.
And with the raises that we gave, it's our budget.
We're going to have to be realistic. We can't keep going like we did this year. So, unless those things are broken down and they're not working, they're not running, I guess I'd agree with Ann.
Karen, Tim, Cheryl, Teresa?
I agree with them.
Yep. I would stretch them some more. They're sitting idle now.
Teresa?
I agree. It's not the time to do it right now.
So we put that as a 2. Teresa, Cheryl, you feel the same? Is Cheryl there?
Yeah, sorry, I had to mute. I think there's consensus for that. And if this is a place, we were talking earlier about the kitchen equipment and stuff where you can't get parts, it's getting expensive, but for the buses, you probably can still fix them. I think Mike and all you guys are on it. I agree.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
All right.
And then Yes,
If
sir.
you don't mind, Abby. All right, so if we don't do the buses, the rotation on the new buses and the support vehicles, we need to absolutely then add money to the transportation department budget. Probably James and I have talked about it along with Brad, our mechanic, of approximately $25,000 additional just to cover the repairs.
Maintenance. Well, I understand that maintenance 25,000 is, I guess we're patching but it's not 432,000, and looks like we have board consensus. I think the board does realize that if these aren't replaced, that they'll have to be maintained and probably repaired. Is the board understand that?
Yep.
I
Okay.
would say I can't imagine you spend 5,000 per bus on big repairs. That sounds like a lot. I would be surprised if you spend that much.
Okay. Well, we'll maybe understand we might need that, and if we don't have to use it all, then even better. So, how about
Now,
these?
before you move on, the support vehicles.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the support vehicles next. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just throw my 2 cents in. With the growth of special ed and the demands that are placed upon our transportation department to take students to various locations, I'm sure you saw the spreadsheet and the number of miles that are on those vehicles, and then also being able to use those in other capacities throughout the district. I understand the bus rotation. I understand the fiscal responsibility portion of that. I strongly support vehicles. If we can't do 5, maybe at least 3. I really don't feel comfortable sometimes sending one of our Suburbans out with 180,000 miles on a trip to Champaign or further. That makes me nervous.
Is that a trip to Champaign for students? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. We use those vehicles for a lot of different things. I mean, they're driven all day, every day on special routes. But then
Are
we
these
also
for
use them
special
different-
are students with special needs, or are you talking extracurricular?
Students with
Extracurricular
special
as
needs.
well.
Yeah, both. It's twofold.
Okay. So you're saying we probably could get by with 3.
I'm not saying we could get by with 3. That would be my guess. Tom can probably speak to that better than I can, but I don't think it would be wise to disregard all 5 like we did the buses. That's my point.
Okay.
Jump in? Just so you know, I had put 4 question mark on my sheet, Scott. So
Yeah, I would agree with the 3 for sure. And if there's a strong case, are you talking about 3 or 4 new ones or trade? Which, Scott, are you talking about?
Well, the 3 that I'm aware of that we're going to trade are in desperate need of trade. We're not going to get much out of them because of their age, the mileage, and condition. So 3 trades, and then either 3 or 4 new to replace those.
yeah,
Okay.
they're talking about getting rid of our older ones, Karen, and getting new ones. Whether it's 3 or 4 or 5, they're new.
Yeah, I would be fine with trading in the 3 older ones for newer ones.
Losing you, Karen.
She said she'd be okay with 3 older ones being traded in.
Okay. I'm good with
How
3.
many? I put these in a little bit of a different situation because of all the things I've heard about this from the buses. So if we went up to 4, I suppose, I could justify that. But, it's a board decision. So
I'm okay with 4. Anyone else
I'm
okay with 4?
Yeah, I'm okay with 4.
I'm good
Ann?
with 3. Well, we got a lot of stuff we want to do here, so I'm with 3.
Tim?
I don't care either way. 4 is fine.
Mike?
And it's, hey,
Cheryl?
it's Cheryl. I'm kind of
Okay.
jumping in here. And I know we're looking at the numbers and the budget, but we have to have that safety aspect to this. And I am hearing from Scott Dearman and I think Tom, there's some concern, and we really have to take that into account.
Thank you. Are you okay with 4 then?
Whatever the consensus is and whatever, the administration is recommending on this piece is really important.
Teresa?
I'm good with the 4. What would that cost be for the 4?
Well, if you divide 188 by
Yeah,
5,
that-
I guess.
Right, take about 37,000, it's gonna get you down to just right at 150.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fair.
what I was gonna do. Okay, just making sure.
Okay.
Okay.
So now we have all these items. Somebody been adding these up?
It's
Abby,
too much.
did you, are all the districts 1 with the exception of the athletic fields being a 2? Is that correct?
We have exhaust fans being a 2. We have the theater lighting being a 2. We have the bus rotation being a 2. So we're taking out then
Wasn't
the
what
gym
was-
floors are a 2. So if we can add 11,000.
Right. I'm just talking just. Yeah. No,
If
you're
somebody
good.
could somebody add this up? Because
I
can't
have it.
listen.
I have it,
Okay.
Abby.
What's our total then?
If you're ready.
I'm
For
ready.
a 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me
Yes.
refresh this because I did change a number here.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? On the banner on that tile, I have a question mark on that because if I understand it, Scott, you were going to talk to Greg Fairchild. We've already made 2 classrooms tiled, and you're going to talk to him about the possibility of letting that child go back to one of those 2 classrooms and having a teacher move. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
And
so
I put that as a 2.
don't include that right now, Teresa.
Right. I put it as a 2. So a 1 for the high, we have 511,000, little over
Okay.
500. Okay. And then for the 2s are 534. So it's about
Okay.
split in half.
Well, I think that's good.
Could I have that number again, Teresa? 533,000?
For a 1, and I'll send this out to everyone. For a 1, I have 511, 240, and I know I don't need to go to that extent, but for a 2, I have 534, 116.
Very good. Did you get that, Mike?
And I'll send this to you to make sure I got this all correct.
I did.
believe I
Teresa, is
did.
that inclusive of the support vehicles, or is that just the building work?
That is inclusive of everything. So transportation, I put the buses as a 2, and 150,000 for the support vehicles as a 1.
Okay.
Hey, Teresa, it's Damon. Do you have it broken down between O&M and HLS as far as number 1s?
I do. I got to refresh my pivot tables here because I changed that number. Bear with me a minute, one
No
second
problem.
here, and I'll send this to you. No worry. HLS, I have for a 1 is 191,840. For O&M is 169,4, and for transportation, the 150.
Okay. Hey guys, if I can just make one recommendation, the one thing that I would consider if I were you guys is to go ahead and do all of the HLS projects, whether it's a 1 or 2. I think the grand total with everything that Tom had on HLS was like 230 some thousand. I'm trying to recall it from memory. That fund, it's all property tax money. So we will have over $400,000 in revenue in that fund. That is a fund that if you build up the fund balance, we can't transfer it anywhere. And if we build it up too much, then we definitely will, as we get more projects, we'll definitely be deficit budgeting, which I know we try not to do. So I would just throw in my 2 cents. I would probably at least consider going ahead and doing all of the HLS projects because we have plenty of revenue in that fund for next year.
Well, we have done everything except the exhaust fans.
Right.
I believe.
I would add those on because we're going to have the money in that fund that can't be used for anything else.
And the theater lighting is also in that, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. No. Yeah, well, that's it. That's what he's got it under HLS. Yes.
I don't understand why theater lighting would be in HLS.
Well, if you want to use HLS, you put it under HLS, but you have to use the architect when you're using health, life, safety fund. So, but I don't think this is a health, life, safety 10-year inspection item.
Right. I think that popped up on the survey.
Yeah, that's not something that we've been told you need to do. Now, the fans, we're told that we should do them, but we've got 1 more year we can do it. But you cannot wait any longer if it's that last year.
I'm okay with the exhaust fan thing added.
Anyone else okay with the exhaust fans for 35,000? That brings us back up to 400 or 540 some.
But
Mike?
keep in mind that's just out of HLS, and we're only at, I think Teresa said for number ones on O&M, we're at 170,000. Kind of try to keep those separate if you can.
What happens? Do we with the excess funds in HLS? We can't carry that forward, Damon. Do they take it away from us?
No. What I meant, Mike, is we carry it forward. We build up a fund balance, but it's not a fund that if we would ever look at transferring money to like the education fund,
No, we
safety
don't. We're
money
not.
has to stay there.
So
Do we ever have a shortage of HLS projects?
No. That's what I'm saying. We're always going to have those projects. That's not the issue. I just want to make sure.
But just because we have it doesn't mean we have to spend it right now. I mean, we've got another year we can hold out if we need to, but it's up to the board here. Are you comfortable with waiting another year? I think we all agreed we were, but if
Right.
someone
And just to be clear, it's a bucket of money that can't be moved somewhere
Right.
else. But we
Right.
don't lose it, Mike.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's still under O&M, correct? I mean, it's still part of that money.
No, it's
No? Okay.
health, life, safety.
Okay, it's a separate bucket.
Right. Okay.
So are we keeping it at a 2? Is that correct?
I believe the consensus is keeping it at a 2. All those that think that's, please let me know.
And you have to remember too, that they said there might be like about 300,000 left this year in the O&M. So.
Hey, Ann, I wanted to jump in on that. So I looked back at that. I don't know. I might have misspoke on that. I've had so many numbers over the last week. I don't know. Let's not count on that. I don't think that I wouldn't count on that. Let's just say that there very well could be a surplus, but I wouldn't bank anything on it at this point. I'm projecting that there's not when I looked back at the numbers, but I was also the numbers that I sent out to you guys yesterday. I was very conservative on that. So trying to not completely going worst case scenario, but pretty close.
All right.
Okay.
I think Teresa's done so much hard work on her spreadsheet. I don't want to change any numbers.
Thank you.
I don't want to change any numbers and screw up her numbering.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I'll send this out to everyone. Make sure I didn't get the priority levels wrong. But Damon, I have pivot tables in there. I'm sure you're familiar with them. You can do anything that you want with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. We do appreciate your expertise on that. Very much appreciated.
Welcome.
Okay, so now are we ready to move on to the DHS pool project update? Mr. Wisdom. Can everyone hear me?
I can hear
Hello?
you.
Okay, are we ready to move on to the pool project update, Mr. Wisdom?
Yeah, is there a way to get that PowerPoint up on the board, Scott? Scott?
It's coming, Mike.
Oh, okay. Thought I was muted.
There you go.
Let me make a point before we go on to that. I've already been buzzed a couple times already that the treatments, fertilizer and all of that is not just for the soccer field. It's also for baseball and soccer fields. So that's being spread out over 3 sports. So, but I still think I'd like to look into that further. I think Tom said he's going to get me and Tim the break.
So it's baseball, soccer, and what, Mike?
And baseball, soccer, and softball.
But it's not the front yards when you drive in.
I don't think so.
I didn't think so either.
I think we'll have to do a little more digging on this. Okay, so I don't want to spend a fortune of time on this because we got other stuff to cover. But I started this thing before all this hit with the coronavirus and everything, and I'm just going to go through this. And it's not going to hurt my feelings one way or the other, however the board decides on this. But we started the pool analysis quite a number of months ago, more than a year ago. because nothing had been done with that facility for so long.
Right.
This first slide is basically the issues that we identified with the pool. And the ones in the red are the ones that we've taken care of so far. And the ones that are left, except for the lockers in the locker room, the rest of those, we really can't do much about it without taking a chance on jeopardizing our grandfathering, which we don't want to do. And so, except for the lockers, we've basically done what we set out to do for the refurbishing. Okay, can I have the next slide? All right, in December of last year, the board authorized 3 more items of refurbishing to do. Painting the pool area, $90,000. The new LED lights for $40,000. The new starting blocks for $35,000. Total $165,000. Next slide, please. The 2 of those items are already being done. The painting for $36,000. The lighting for $25,000. Both of them substantially under the amounts that were approved. For those 2 items alone, the board approved $130,000, and the total came in. Tom did a great job of getting those numbers in very efficiently at $61,000. So we're saving from what we authorized $68,000. The last item that was approved in December were new starting blocks. The ones we have they're antiquated. Most good quality schools and swimming programs have the new starting block. It's not just a flat platform there. And we authorized $35,000. We got a quote for $27,500. So we're going to save $7,800. It's basically that's the last item that we need to do for refurbishing. So next slide.
Can I ask a question on that, Mike? So the pool is deep enough for starting blocks, correct?
Yeah, we looked into that. That's a good question. Yes, they are.
Okay.
We authorized $165,000. We're already doing the painting and the lights and the starting blocks. If we do them, be $88,700. So it's $76,000 less than was authorized in December. Nonetheless, well, let me go back. Go ahead and go to that, Scott. Thank you. So that if we do the starting blocks, these are the total costs that we incurred for refurbishing the pool. $457 for all that work, removing the protrusions, caulking the pool envelope so it doesn't leak all the time, getting rid of the rust on the girders, the new deck surface because the other one was slippery and kids were falling, getting hurt, and then the new HVAC system that was basically shot. So we spent $457,000 for that. It's already in. Getting a lot of compliments on how great that system is, how much better it is. Painting the pool, $36,000. New lights, $25,000. If we do the starting blocks, total cost for all those refurbishing items would be $546,000. Next slide. And so the summary of the pool options that our committee went through: closing the pool and repurposing $900,000 to $1 million. Collaboration with third party. Who knows if we could even find somebody. Building a new pool, a current site, $2 to $3 million, which would basically do very little, if anything. Building a new pool somewhere, $9 to $10 million. So the most efficient, cost-effective way to really make our pool what it should be was to refurbish, and that cost, which would include those starting blocks, would be $546,000. So it was a fairly judicious expenditure on the board's part. Now we've got when you go in there, it's like a new pool, and it'll last for another 20, 25 years. The filtration system and the heater, we know we're going to have to deal with that at some point. That's going to be a big ticket item. But the fact of the matter is, we're going to have it when it dies. It may last for a whole lot more years, so we don't know when that's going to come up. And Katie will put that in her 5-year program to deal with when we can. So the question for the board, I still, even though it had been approved in December for starting blocks, given everything that's been happening and knowing what our budgets look like, I did not feel comfortable, and neither did the rest of the committee, and neither did Tom, just pulling the trigger on those new starting blocks. So that's what I'm asking at this point. It will not hurt my feelings if we say, Mike, that's not time for an expenditure like that. So I put it out there. It costs us $27,500. I'd like to hear what everybody thinks.
But that's this fiscal year. That's this year's budget, correct? Not next year.
Yeah, that's this year's.
Okay.
And that's it, right? The 27.5. There's no more for now.
Yes, correct.
I would push it off. I didn't
Karen?
think it was that bad. We have a very good swim team now, so I don't think our starting blocks are hurting them.
The only thing I'll say is I think other schools they use those newer starting blocks. They get used to them. When our teams go to meets or to sectionals or regionals or state, they're not used to the new starting block styles. They're used to the old ones. And so they probably are at a little bit of a disadvantage. Again, I completely understand, Tim. Not going to hurt my feelings. Just wanting to point out all the facts.
Anyone else have a comment?
My comment, I would be a proponent to complete the project for the pool. Based on your numbers, Damon, in the budget, it does look like in O&M we are going to have money left over. Or maybe we're not. I'm looking at the wrong one. Maybe we're not. But for $27,000, and what you've done with the pool has just been outstanding. So I'd be a proponent for just completing that.
This is Anne. I think you guys have done a great job, and I think we just did nothing with this pool for so long. So I'd like to see it done too. I mean, part of the reason it's costing as much as it is nothing was done for so long. So I think you guys have done a great job with it. And I think that the pool people are really happy. And we've got a really good swim team.
Anyone else have any comments? Karen?
I'm fine with the expenditure for the starting blocks. I'm torn on it because I feel like it's a horribly difficult economic time and we're facing it in the future. But I think we saved so much doing this. And I think, as Ann said, we put it off for so long. And this is a real performance issue for the students. It's an actual thing that's going to help them and it's for them. And so I'm a little bit torn on it, but I lean towards supporting the purchase of the starting blocks.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the starting blocks and the monies. And I know we're getting way back to the other topic, but do you think there'll be anything left in this year's budget that maybe we could help put towards the playground issue at Banner? Notwithstanding these the blocks, but just from a budget standpoint, is there anything this year that maybe we could use, Scott or Damon?
Abby, I think it will be. We certainly could. I don't know. Here's what's going to get confusing, and I know we're going to talk about this next. This year's budget's going to end up looking really weird because of the way property taxes are going to end up falling out. So it's going to be really hard to tell. I certainly don't have any issue. I think it would be good to finish it.
Okay, so you also agree. It would be nice to get it done. I mean, I will say that this was one of my first things I wanted to accomplish when I became board president, and Mike was so kind, he and Tim, to take this project on. It was something that I felt strongly about, and I kept hearing about for years and years and years. And my thought was, okay, one way or another, let's address it. Let's either not do it and tell the people, because the people had just been, our parents had been, kind of limping along and not really getting an answer. And so I appreciate it being done. I'd like it to be done. Have we ordered the new lockers?
No, we have not. And I'm not asking that those be ordered at this point. I'd suggest that Katie just put that in her 5-year plan for replacement when we can.
Okay. Well, I would be okay with the starting blocks if this finishes our pool to completion, and I think our parents and our swimmers deserve it. But I also know there are many other things that our district deserves and we need to probably focus on. But I'd be okay with that as well.
Cheryl?
Cheryl, are you there?
She got bounced out, but she's coming back in. She just was in the waiting room. I just admitted her, so she'll be joining.
So, Mike, the new lockers are not included, or they are for the pool?
No, they're not included.
Okay.
I think that's something, and that it doesn't have an impact on safety or performance.
You can do it later.
They need to be replaced, but they can be lived with at this point, and Katie can put that in her 5-year plan.
Okay.
They are unsightly.
They are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate all you've done with the pool. Any other questions or comments before we move on?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right. We'll now have a discussion regarding the finances and budget reduction. Anyone want to lead this conversation?
I'll just kind of lead out before I turn it over to Damon. In the last 24 hours, we've kind of been hit with some bombshells, let's just say. Obviously, we knew about Bradley. That was earlier. But then we heard the announcement about OSF and what's going on there. Caterpillar, what's going on there. And then in conversations with the ROE superintendent call this morning, Damon and I both sat in on that, like we always do. But the topic of property taxes came up, and what's going to happen in Peoria County is they're going to do a 25, 25, 50 split on the property tax installments. The first installment will be due June 9th, and that can be 25%. Obviously, they're going to encourage everyone, if you can pay the full payment, pay the full payment. But if you're in a bind and want to defer, they're going to allow that. And then on August 10th, the other 25% is due from that first installment. And then the last installment will be 50% will be in September. That affects our income because we're used to getting that June tax money. So it's just going to be spread out differently. And then who knows with the economy, what's going to happen as far as the monies that are going to come in. Are people not going to be able to pay their taxes? I mean, we don't know the answer to that, but that's kind of the lead into this. So I'll turn it over to Damon and let him go from here.
Thank you, Dr. Dearman. Yeah, that was what they talked about today. I kind of want to just touch base on what that looks like for us, because since we're a cash basis, it's going to really throw off the way things look in our budget. So if we get the June payment, say we get 25%, we're used to getting 47%. That's really going to skew our current fiscal year's AFR, because we're going to have way less revenue coming in this current fiscal year. Then what it's also going to do, it's going to overinflate our revenue most likely than for next fiscal year, because we'll get an August payment, a September payment, and then if things are somewhat back to normal a year from now, we'll get a June payment. So it's really going to kind of make our budget look a little goofy. We're going to have too much revenue. So I'm just kind of preparing you for that as we go through the budget. It's going to look like it's better than it really is.
So for you veteran board members and Dr. Humbles, you've lived through this as superintendent. It goes back to the old days of mandated categoricals before they changed to evidence-based funding. You get 3 payments in 1 year, 5 in the next. So you were constantly getting monies from the prior year and the next year. And it just threw things off. So something similar is going to happen, but it's going to be with a big chunk of our revenue, which is our property taxes. It's going to look like we're getting so much less this year and then so much more next year, but the aggregate dollars are still the same. They're just spread across 2 fiscal years now.
Right. Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to point out as far as how next year's budget's going to look. And like I said, we just found that out today. So it's constantly changing. We're constantly getting new information about how things are going to be different. I'm going to be on a webinar next week through the Illinois Association of School Business Officials that's going to talk specifically about financials and the COVID-19. So just wanted to make sure I got you that information for sure. Try to keep you as up to date as we can as Dr. Dearman and I continue to find out more information.
Well, thank you for that information. It will be interesting. I know that when I saw that on TV, I thought the same thing, that our tax drops are certainly going to be a little light starting the fiscal year. So anyway, this meeting actually was to talk about the budget and what we could do to reduce expenditures. Nobody wants to talk about that. Of course, nobody likes to do that, but it's going to be an issue that we need to address, not only for our taxpayers, but for our budget as well now, especially with the property tax being such a big part of our school funding. I've been thinking of things, every little bit helps. I know, just something as simple as a school board convention. In the years that were tight, when I was a superintendent, we would have, 3 or 4 people attend the school board convention instead of everyone. And I think maybe we can start looking at some of the things that we can do as a board and as administrators to help with that. We might want to consider only sending 2 or 3 people to the board or to the board convention from the board, which we only had that many last year. But we also might want to think about that with administration, maybe only, rather than 5 or 6 administrators, perhaps, they can take turns, maybe, 2 this year and 2 or 3 the next year. But there are many other things to consider with the budget, but every little bit helps. And I know that this was asked to be discussed, so I'm just going to leave it to our individual board members. Do you have any comments, concerns, anything you'd like to see our administrators focusing on? I'll just start with who's next in the box, and looking at Ann Henry. If you have nothing to say, we can move on, and you can come in later too.
Well, a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Not in education, but everywhere else. And people are I know like CAT, they're not doing any, I think it came out today, they're not going to do any increases, they're not going to do any bonuses. I think, and with the situation with us, I think we have to really take that into account right now.
Many of our taxpayers will be feeling this burden, and you're right. Mike, any comments from you? You're next here on the list, I see.
Yeah, Damon, I agree with everything Ann said. I think we're going to have to take a real hard look at our budget next year and economize where we can so that we don't lose staff or programs. So we're going to have to save it somewhere else. But Damon, you sent around a spreadsheet that had a projection for where you think we're going to be at the end of this year, which because of what's happened, we do have some savings between where we thought we were going to be. But one of the line items under expenses was the site and construction. And we had budgeted about $2.5 million, and we're going to be at about $1.5 million. How much of that $1.5 million that we spent has been DVMS, the expansion to DVMS?
Yeah, so when you look at that Fund 60, the site and construction, it's broken down to a couple different funds. It's our regular capital projects, which would have been the DVMS project. And then the separate fund 61 is our county facility sales tax. When I looked today at kind of not so much looking at the budget, more so looking at what the fund balance is, because that's kind of telling us what the money is that's remaining. When I looked at Fund 60 today, which is our regular capital projects for DVMS, we are at about 300,000 left in that fund. The one thing that I want to point out about that, I talked to our bond attorneys yesterday and verified that the money that is left over from that DVMS project, whatever that is, and Tom and I are working with Pete Mangieri to kind of make sure that everything's been paid out and figure out exactly what is left. We can use that money for another construction project. That could be like the district office, the track or turf replacement. We just have to do that within 3 years of the bond. So the bond was in 2018, so that gives us until 2021. I think it was the summer of 18, so summer of 21 for us to use that remaining fund balance. So that is some good news. We can have some dollars there to use.
So is that for refurbishing or maintenance, like spraying the soccer field, or are you talking? What are your restrictions on the use for that?
Abby, they sent me the wording. It's pretty general. I mean, I think it probably needs to be more related to a capital project, not so
Yeah,
much
that's what I thought.
maintenance.
That's what I thought. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
if we're gonna
Well-
use it for something outside of DVMS, it would be more of a capital project.
I would point out that the Banner Playground will probably be a capital project. The administration building will certainly be a capital project. So there's plenty of places we can put that savings. Thanks to Pete for coming up with it.
Absolutely. And it would be nice if some of that could be used to help the playground project.
Well, yeah, I think we do need to get those answers that Teresa was talking about earlier, but I'm in agreement with that.
Yeah, and I would be in favor of those dollars going towards the district office rather than having to take more out of our own funds. Even though we'll be paying ourselves back, I still think it'd be good to use that money for that purpose.
I agree 100%.
Okay. All right, let's see. Tim, your ideas on budget reduction? Can you hear me, Tim?
Oh, I unmuted her. I think you've hit most of them. One item that we don't talk about much because some of them we really support it is the expanded education that some of the staff takes advantage of. I don't know how many other districts do that. Is that in a contract that we have to do that with them, or can we choose to stop that whenever?
Are you talking about continuing ed, like college courses for?
Right.
I believe that's a negotiated item, Scott.
Yeah, it's in the
That's That's in the 3-year agreement with the DEA.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Okay, well, feel free to jump back in if you need to. Cheryl. Mrs. Bluth? Cheryl?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I lost.
Any ideas on budget reduction items, or do you want to give us your input, please?
Yeah, no, I think you guys have gone line by line and we're at a good place. Just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing, both short term and long term. Hit the critical items, and make sure that we're taking care of things, for the long term. So yeah, no, I think it's been a good discussion.
Okay, thank you. Teresa?
Yes, I agree with what everyone said. We're going through some extremely challenging times now and probably for several months moving forward. I think from, my background too, I think we need to set a target and we need to start working on a list on how we can reduce costs, whether it's, do we want to find 10%? Do we want to find 5%? But we need to start on something like that to see where those reductions are. There's got to be a deep dive taken because it's going to be a very rough year next year.
Yeah. I mean, we would all love to stay within our budget. I know we have reserves, but as I mentioned before, when I was talking to Dr. Dearman, we have people who are paying a lot of money in taxes, and they don't want to hear that our schools and our board members aren't making sure that we're staying within our budget. And I think it's more important more than ever now that we do that. So I agree with you, Teresa.
Something else to ask and mention, I don't know how it will affect us, but I think our numbers are going to go up next year because I think you're going to have a lot of the private schools jumping ship and going public. And I don't know if that will cost us more or how that will affect us.
Oh, you mean having more students come, attending privates? It's possible that may happen. Karen, do you have any comments, or do you feel the same like Teresa? We need to look for a 10% reduction, or do you have specific items that you'd like to address?
Yes, I do. I agree with Teresa. I think that we have to come up with some dollar percentage or something, because I think next year our deficit could be significant. We were already projecting, I think, -2% for EAV for next year, and I would imagine it's not going to be any better. And given probably reduced sales this year, the EAV for subsequent years will be lower than was expected previously. So that means, we're still going to have our increase in salaries of, 850,000, but we're going to have less revenue. So I fully agree with Teresa that we need to come up with an amount or a percentage. And what I would like to see is the administration make some recommendations of options. If they have to cut, $1 million or $2 million or $3 million, what are some options for us? I know that one of the things we brought back was the middle school concept, and it's very controversial, and it was taken away in the last budget cuts of 2015, but it can render significant savings. And I think we are going to have to look at staff and programs because, frankly, we're very, very lean, and 85% of our budget or more is staff. And so, unfortunately, I think we're going to have to look at other options.
Okay.
I think Karen hit the nail on the head there, and that we are very lean. There were some, reductions that were done prior to Damon and I's arrival. And, I've spoken with administrators about, we saw the writing on the wall. I mean, this has been something we've discussed even before the COVID-19 crisis came up and we had declining EAV. When you look at the budget and, if you're looking at a 10% reduction, we have to be very careful about our 10% from specific items or overall, because if you're looking to save, $1 million, you're not going to save that in supplies. We don't spend that kind of money in supplies and board conferences and things of that nature. If you're wanting to make significant cuts in the $1 million range, it's going to come from two places that nobody wants to touch, and that's people and that's programs, because that's what costs us the money.
Right.
We've got 454 or 452 days cash on hand. I think it's 454 days cash on hand right now. We could go a whole year and collect no property taxes and still be okay. And we're almost 4 times what's required by, the state board to have the highest financial profile score. So thank goodness that we have reserves, and we're not in the position of several districts I talked to this morning that are looking at tax anticipation warrants, issuing bonds to make payroll after June. We're not in that situation. So, we always say we like to save for a rainy day, and by golly, if this isn't a rainy day, I don't know what one is. So we will definitely give those a look. But if we're looking at significant savings of millions of dollars, and you're asking me as an administrator to go to my team and come up with those, people and programs are going to be part of that. And I just don't think we're to that point yet. There's talk of a federal stimulus package coming out to help with public schools. We don't know what that entails. We can speculate, and I think rightfully so. We're definitely going to see some decline. I mean, in sales tax revenue, that's certainly going to happen, and that's going to impact our bottom line. Is it going to impact EAV? I would think common sense would dictate so, but we don't know the exact impact of that either. So before we start slashing programs and people, I think we probably need to, we have the money. Let's do what we can right now in a conservative fashion, but also keep our eye on the prize of what we're trying to do and what we're tasked to do, and that's provide a quality educational environment for our students. And thank goodness we do have those reserves to tap into if needed.
So the only thing I would disagree on, Dr. Dearman, is that the last time we had the budget cuts of 2015 when Caterpillar laid off a lot of people, those people were brought back right away. And so we were able to withstand that. Now, they did make the cuts so that we didn't have those recurring expenses, and they did live within their means, that board. This instance is different because even before the coronavirus, we were looking at probably a permanent change in home values because the jobs that left from Caterpillar are not probably coming back. And so the coronavirus has only exacerbated that. So I would not favor, I'm okay taking a little bit out of reserves, but I'm not okay taking, $2 million a year and just hoping the EAV is going to come back and catch up with that. I think after a couple of years, we're going to see that it's probably not going to catch up with our expenses. And so at some point we have to get those in line. And the sooner you do that, the less painful it is. And so I would rather see a look at that in next year. Maybe it's not covering everything, but something.
I'm gonna make a point here. We're all talking about cutting right now. Cutting. We don't have many options for generating more revenue, but I'm going to raise a couple that we need to start looking into. There was some savings toward the end of this year in our bond fund because we were able to lower our interest rates on some of the bonds that we had. And we need to start looking at that. The interest rates are really low right now. And maybe there are some additional bond funds that we can retrade and get lower interest rates and save the costs in our bond fund. And the other thing, we talked about it a couple meetings ago, and then this other stuff all took precedence, but we do have those reserves. Thank goodness that we do. But I still think that we can do a better job generating investment returns on those dollars. And one thing we talked about doing is what the airport authority did was going out for an RFP for a financial advisor who really stands out that could help us generate those kind of funds. And with the board's permission, I think Teresa and I would start working with Damon and Scott as their time permits and our time permits to start putting something like that together so we can get that process going. I think it would yield quite a bit toward our...
Mike, I've already started that conversation on the liquid side with Troy. Talked to him yesterday and today. And with the stimulus package that went out for small businesses, you know, they've got a high demand load right now, and they need deposit to cover that. So you're right. Our liquid funds right now are getting us 10 basis points. And in speaking with him today, they could guarantee us a floor of, I think it's about 37.5 basis points on those liquid funds. So if you move over to them, I wanted to wait until the end of the fiscal year. We've already discussed this, but if we can do it sooner and later, that's about about $275,000 a year of extra income right away. That's on the liquid side. Now we're also talking the investment side, and I know you guys are working with Damon on that, but that's already been explored and something we need to pursue rather soon on the liquid side.
And I don't mind tapping into our reserves, you know, to get us through a year or two. But after 2-3 years of deficit budget, we definitely do need to look at doing things a different way. So that's just my commentary. Okay, anyone else did I leave anyone out? Teresa, I think did you have the opportunity? You did. Anyone else have anything else to contribute before we move into closed session? All right, then, could I please have a motion to adjourn into closed session? And those that would not be in closed session can leave the meeting at this time. Thank you, everyone. Hello?
You need us to make a motion, right?
I'll make a motion to move to closed session.
Thank you, Karen. Would you have a second?
Do we have to read all of those reasons for what we're going into closed session for?
Oh, yeah, we do.
None of the rest of us has that statement, Abby.